Hey everyone, welcome to State of Space, where we discuss all the space news of the following week. I am Rab, the friendly neighborhood space nerd, and I am joined by my very, very good friend, Stairbender, your friendly neighborhood keyboard and tech nerd. Uh, and he is not quite at the same level of knowledge as I am on space, but he's here to facilitate any questions that you guys may have in chat, and to he's got a story he's going to present, which is kind of neat, and we got some he's just here for us to chat, and we like to discuss what's going on in space. We got a bunch of cool stories for you tonight. Specifically, our main story tonight is going to be revolving around some really cool stuff going on with Crew Dragon and with NASA's commercial crew program. So we'll be talking about that. But first, Stair, how you been so far? Good this week. Having a good week. I know it's only Tuesday.
Yeah, it's been my Monday, so yeah, pretty good.
Oh yeah, you were lucky enough to have a long weekend,
Yeah.
unlike the rest of us that had a normal weekend.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I don't know.
well, all right. So I always like to start State of Space with what our upcoming launches are to watch in the next week. Um, the big one is tomorrow morning, actually at 9 a.m. I've seen conflicting sources. It's either at 8:30 or 9. I'm fairly sure it's at 9 a.m. Central, and that is the flight of New Shepard 18, which will be the flight of Captain Kirk. William Shatner is part of the crew or part of the spaceflight participants on board New Shepard. If you're unfamiliar, New Shepard is Blue Origin's suborbital commercial. Um, they do some science. They do take some science packages, but it's mostly space tourism. But William Shatner is going to be on it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Excited to see Captain Kirk fly. He's been very excited. There were some fake like pictures floated around Twitter of him in the Blue Origin spacesuit, and that went around all day yesterday and over the weekend. And then it wasn't until this morning that they actually released an official crew photo. He looks pretty good in the Blue Origin flight suit. I will say, um, uh, for a 90-year-old man, he does not look 90. That is for sure. But like I said, Captain Kirk's going up. Then on the 14th, so on Thursday, actually it really is Wednesday night. OneWeb number 11 is going to be launching on a Soyuz rocket from French Guiana, and that's Ariane space rocket. On Ariane space, they purchased the Soyuz from Roscosmos, but it is all done by Ariane. That is at 4:40 a.m. Central Time on Thursday morning. If you'd like to get up and watch that, I will catch the YouTube stream later because I will be sleeping.
What? A live stream?
No, not going to live stream that. And then in the same vein of times that I can't stream things, on the 16th at 4:34 a.m. Is the launch of the Lucy, which is a NASA probe. It is going to Jupiter and will be exploring the asteroids that are kind of in Jupiter's orbit, which is pretty neat. It's a very long-term mission. It's been on the books for I think 10 or 15 years. It's very cool that it's finally going to go up. That's going to be launching on a ULA Atlas V. If you haven't seen an Atlas V launch, I highly recommend checking out the YouTube if you don't want to get up to 4 o'clock in the morning, which I don't blame you. But of course, these very strange launch times are all because they have to meet, well, in the case of ULA, it's because it has to meet a very specific, launch target to be able to intercept Jupiter. I don't know why the hell the Ariane has to launch at 4 o'clock in the morning, but whatever. I mean, there are little time zone differences, but still. I don't know.
So on the loose, is Lucy an acronym for something, or is that just what
No, it's just
uh,
just called Lucy.
they just named it
Um,
Lucy? Okay, I was just
I
curious.
I saw something about that. I think it's named after. I want to say it's named after a person, um,
Mm,
but I'm not entirely sure. It's either that or it's named after like a special asteroid or something.
okay.
Not entirely sure.
Okay.
Usually they're acronyms. In this case, no, it's just named Lucy.
Just name.
Um, there was another probe that NASA sent called Juno to Jupiter, which
Yeah.
is pretty funny considering if you look at Greek and Roman mythology and everything else, that's basically Jupiter's wife. And it sent it to look at all the moons, which are named after all of Jupiter's concubines, which is
Mm,
hilarious. So basically, NASA sent his wife to go check on his mistresses, which is funny. Um, but speaking of launch
NASA
stuff,
knew what they were doing.
oh, they absolutely knew what they were doing there. It was that's NASA has a pretty good sense of humor, actually, on a lot of these things. I mean, if you think about it, if you ever get a chance to talk to some actual like real life rocket scientists and real life astrophysicists and stuff, a lot of them have a pretty good sense of humor. A lot of them are pretty funny, because a lot of their stuff can tend to be a little dry. So I think it's part of their training to
Mm,
have a little sense of humor to be good communicators. But speaking of launches, that drives us right into the news portion. I told you guys last week about the JAXA Raise 2 launch that was scheduled for October 6th. That was scrubbed due to an issue with ground support equipment, um, which that was kind of not, it wasn't the first scheduled launch for October. We've had a couple before that. It's kind of been a long term thing in the space world. People call October Scrubtober, because there tends to be just an abnormal amount of launch scrubs in October. And that did seem to hold so far. There have been a few launches that have gone, but there have been more scrubs than launches so far this month. So that is, I don't know what the superstition around that is, what causes Scrubtober to be a thing, but hopefully Lucy will not have a problem. Hopefully Captain Kirk can get up there and do his thing, and hopefully OneWeb will have a good day. OneWeb is it's a satellite service company. It's a communication company. They're putting lots of smaller satellites, not as small as Starlink, but not as big as the big satellites. It's supposed to be another micro constellation. But they've had tons and tons of funding issues, and they've been bought and sold a couple of times, and um, it's just a big mess with them. But so it'd be nice to see them get a satellite up. Um, so jumping more into the news, well, one of the big stories that came out this last week was came out of Russia, which is that the Russian government put out a directive that Russian journalists could not report on anything related to the space program unless they declared themselves to be a foreign agent, and as such are can be governed by all kinds of really nasty Russian laws. Which, not to get too political, makes me thankful that I'm in a country like the United States that has freedom of the press. Obviously, they do not have that in Russia, which is sad. Um, and this is, I don't really understand the motivation behind it. They are kind of closing themselves off behind an iron curtain again, and not wanting a lot of the news about from Roscosmos and the space program in general to be released to the public. That could have something to do with the fact that they have not had very good press lately. Um, there's been a lot of really strange things going on. The hole that was drilled in one of the Soyuz modules, that they tried to blame on us. They tried to say an astronaut did it, which is just outrageous. It was obviously done on the ground. Um, just and with the Nauka module almost crashing the whole space station, and just all the just bad Russian press, I could see that maybe they're trying to shut that off. Um, but it's so
yeah, I mean,
strange to me. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was gonna say that's the only thing that makes sense to me is like looking at it from the aspect of like let's just not have any bad press at all by having no press. Because yeah, I mean like until we know things are gonna be great or whatever, and then we'll let people talk about it again. I think.
Well,
Although this, I doubt this will be reversed. It will just all be state media.
right.
Press.
So the state
But
media will report all the good things, but the independent journalists now can't report on the
right.
things that they were doing. And I can't remember her name. There was a fantastic blogger, um, or Twitter. I don't know what the tweeter. I don't know. I
Uh,
don't know.
Katya
Yeah,
Pavlushenko.
yeah.
I
Katya
probably butchered.
Pavlichenko. I think you actually nailed it. She's been really prolific in the last few years. Really awesome source to get information. She generally would tweet in Russian and American. or not American, in English, sorry, in Russian and English, uh, to get information out from Roscosmos, and she had a lot of sources, and she's very she is a very reputable journalist. She basically has come out and said she can't do it anymore because of this law. She's too scared of what the Putin administration could do to her. So that's really sad. I think it's really strange that they're trying so hard to get a positive spin on their space program to try to get their people motivated again into space. Um, but I think this is the wrong way to go about it. But then again, I'm not a dictator, uh, and I'm not, I don't understand that. I've grown up in freedom my whole life, so I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense. On top of that, they announced, and this Putin announced, that they were slashing the budget for Roscosmos by 16% because they were dissatisfied with the progress of the Russian space program. Which that's a great way to make it better. We're going to take money away. You're not doing what we want, so we're going to take money away from you. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Especially if you consider Roscosmos has taken some huge hits in the last couple of years. With Commercial Crew getting up and going, we're not buying seats from them anymore. And those are about $80 million a pop. And we're not buying those seats anymore. So they lost that. We're not buying the Russian engines anymore. We used to buy them for the Atlas V uses Russian engines. And there was actually an act of Congress that said they couldn't do that. Which is why we have a finite amount of Atlas V missions coming up over the next couple of years, and then they're gone to be replaced by the Vulcan, which is ULA's new rocket, which is of the same class as Falcon Heavy. It's actually more along the lines of Starliner, or not Starliner, sorry, on Starship. Not as big as Starship, but on the same side of the equation of large.
Yeah.
It's a very large rocket. I think mostly reusable. Very cool. I'm excited to see what happens with Vulcan, but anyway, that was a huge hit that they're not selling the engine stuff anymore. So all that, they've been in a budget crunch already, and then to take 16% away, I don't get what they think they're going to accomplish by that. But there's been lots of reports of shady dealings, and Rosgozin, who's the head of Roscosmos, he's a loose cannon. He tends to say things that are a little wild, and there's reports that he has like a $4 million dacha that was paid for by Roscosmos, and like bought his wife a Mercedes on Roscosmos money, and all this other weird embezzlement stuff going on. And but he, I guess, is a close ally of Putin, but maybe that's changing. If he's taking the money away, that could be a sign that things could be going in a better direction. I would like to see the Russian space program do better. They've been our partners on the ISS for 20 years. I'd like to see them succeed. I'd like to see them do things, but unfortunately, it's being politicized again. And things like them saying that they don't want to be on the ISS with us anymore. They're not going to extend it anymore. There was some claims made earlier this year that they were going to build their own station, which is hilarious considering Nauka took 15 years to get built and then didn't work right.
Hookers.
Yeah, with blackjack and hookers, exactly. And then they said they were going to try to partner with the Chinese to be part of their station, and it's just like they couldn't even make one module for the ISS within 15 years. It's like, how are you going to build your own station? But I would like to see that all the political crap come away and us go back to the international cooperation that we've had for 20 years, which has been fantastic. So the nice thing about that, though, is if you look at the actual interaction of the astronauts and cosmonauts is very, very good. Which actually brings me to my RAB rec for the week, or my RAB's recommendation, which I wasn't planning on putting in State of Space, but it just fits so perfect right here. There's a new documentary series that just dropped on Disney Plus, which is called Among the Stars. It follows a few American astronauts as they go through the process of fixing the AMS, which is a very cool, I don't want to ruin anything, very cool scientific package on board the ISS that the cooling system failed and they needed to repair it. It's one of the most complicated repairs ever done in space. The only one that they've said is harder was the Hubble, which was insanely difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so it is very cool, and it goes through, all the astronauts in this particular docuseries went up on the Soyuz. So it followed their training regimen and how close the Russian cosmonauts and the Americans that were flying with them, how close they were, and that they were like family, and that they, ate together and drank together and trained together, and were, on a first name basis. They could read each other's, intentions, and like any good crew would do. Thank you for posting that link, Sterry. I appreciate it.
Yep. You're welcome.
But yeah, if you check, and that's my recommendation for the week. Check out Among the Stars. If you have the opportunity to watch it in 4K, holy freaking crap! It is absolutely goddamn gorgeous. Some of the footage is just phenomenal. It's very cool. I think it was only 5 or 6 episodes. They're not long. It's not a hugely long series, but it's definitely worth the time commitment, and get to see the other side of things on stuff I didn't know, on how they develop some of the tools to be able to do what they do on the spacewalks, and how they plan spacewalks and train for them. And they talked to a lot of the engineers, and it was very neat. So I highly recommend that. I bring that up to kind of just saying that, up there is no, us and them. It's
Yeah.
a crew. They're a crew, and they all work together, and they care about each other, and they have crew dinners frequently in the center of the station, between the American and where the American and or where the U.S. and the Russian segments meet, is where they have like a crew dinner together, and they share foods from each agency, which is
You
kind
want
of
to
neat.
try this freeze-dried bear?
Yeah.
You want to try this freeze-dried corn?
uh,
Sure.
from what I read on some of the stuff I read about it, or some of the autobiographies I've read from astronauts, um, I guess the Russians have like really good sausages that
Oh,
everybody
really?
are big fans of, and like cheeses and stuff that are a little different, that everybody's a big fan of. And then the U.S. segment usually has a lot more fresh fruit that comes up on
Mm.
the resupplies. And I guess there's this very dense black bread that is very um, what's the word? Native to Russia, that gets sent up, that I guess everybody's a big fan of too.
Huh.
So they share that. And what's really neat too is when you have like, when Christopher Eddy was up on the station, she's an Italian astronaut, and so the ESA would put food packages in with the NASA resupplies that were for her, that were all Italian foods, and she get olive oil and olives and dates and like fresh pasta and stuff like that, and so she'd share that. And when the German astronaut was up, it was like German things, and when the
Weird.
French we know the French astronaut is up there now, Thomas Pesquet, and I guess that
Yeah.
his food packages have all been done by like 5-star French chefs. That
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and apparently he shares that with his crew. So when you get the whole international thing going on, I mean, there's a Japanese astronaut up there, so there's Japanese like foods. So they all share that, which I think is really cool. That they have like basically they make a big crew dinner where everybody brings a little bit of what they have, and they share it with everyone, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
so sticking with the Russia topic, we talked about it last week. We had the Russian actress and director that went up to the ISS about
Yeah.
13 days ago, 11, 12, something like that days ago, for a 15-day mission to shoot a movie for Russian consumption. I mean, I'm sure it will be international consumption, but it's a Russian movie called The Challenge. Haven't heard a whole lot of news. Twitter's been pretty quiet about it, which, I mean, it's on the Russian segment. We may not hear anything until later
Yeah.
on how that went. There haven't been any problems. We know that. We would have heard of that. But they're coming home on Saturday night. So if you're interested in that, that will be covered by NASA on nasa.gov. If you're interested in checking it out, pretty much all the crew, it doesn't matter if it's all Russian or not, pretty much it's all covered by NASA because it is still the ISS. So you can find that on YouTube. If you haven't seen a Soyuz return, it is pretty cool. At some point, if one happens during a day that I can stream it, I would like to stream a Soyuz return because it is way different than Crew Dragon. Crew Dragon lands on water, um, and has 3 parachutes to be for redundancy. The Soyuz lands on land, and has one gigantic parachute. Uh, and then it has, I mean, this is such the most Russian thing ever. As I explain this, tell me if doesn't sound like the most Russian thing ever. So that one big parachute isn't enough to slow them down enough with that they could possibly they'd hit the ground at about 15 miles an hour, which is a little quick.
That's a little faster than you want to hit the ground.
That's at a clip. So instead of trying to figure out a better parachute or add another parachute, they put rockets on the bottom of the Soyuz that fire like 3 feet off the ground and slows it down to 3 miles an hour. So you see the Soyuz capsule coming down with big parachute over it. There's some great footage of it, especially in Among the Stars. There's some awesome footage of it, like aerial footage from a helicopter. And you see it get real close to the ground, and then whoosh, and all this like dust and smoke comes out from it as it blasts down these little retro rockets to slow it down the last few feet. It's just we in Russia, capsule stops you, not Earth.
That's
So pretty
funny.
great. Yeah. So did you have something, Sarah?
Yeah, so I don't even know where to start with this. There's this whole long article, but the important part, the most important part I think for us is that Rocket Lab was selected to deploy NASA's ACS-3, which that stands for Advanced Composite Solar Sail System, or ACS-3. Um, so NASA's testing out a solar sail, and I was telling Rab before the stream, I think the first time I was even introduced to the concept of a solar sail was in Star Wars Episode 2, I think. Like right after the final battle with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda and Count Dooku. Dooku takes off in his ship, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a solar sail, like shoots out of the front of his ship. It's animated very strangely, but it always looked super cool. I was like, it's like a sail.
That's
Um,
exactly what it is.
so yeah, I mean that's the main thing. It's not supposed to launch at least no earlier than mid 2022 on a Electron launch from New Zealand. Looks like it's going to be a rideshare mission, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of cool. I can drop this link in chat. There's a very cool animation of the sail opening at the very top of this. Um,
Yeah, please do.
but yeah, I mean, this hasn't been done before. Has it any sort of type of solar sail?
Yes, it has been
This the-
done.
It has been done. Okay.
There's been 2 that have been put up. Well, I think there's more than that, but the 2 that I remember off the top of my head is there was Light Sail 1 and Light Sail 2, that were both done by the Planetary Society. Um, and they were completely self-funded, crowd-funded, really, because the Planetary Society is a nonprofit. So they funded those 2 missions. The first one was very, very small. The second one was much larger and very successful, to really prove the concept of solar wind propulsion. Um,
Mm.
uh, I love the Planetary Society. I think they're fantastic. And one of the reasons I love them, among many others, is that their chairman of the board is none other than Bill Nye the Science Guy. Uh, I mean, who doesn't love Bill Nye? Like, yeah. So yeah, they have done it a couple
Right.
times. This one is a NASA mission, which is fantastic. They are really looking at the materials and the properties of solar sails. Um, and this one's coming from a CubeSat. So CubeSats are not big; they're like this. They're 1 meter by 1 meter, I think. So that's
A meter.
small. Yeah, meter by a meter. So um, they're they're one
Right.
cubic meter. Yeah, so
Okay.
they're not big. um,
Yeah,
and
that's not very big.
no, and they're generally pretty light. So for them to put this much technology and this much demonstration into something that size is pretty cool. Um,
True. Yeah.
so the solar cell concept, this can be used. We could use it for interplanetary missions to kind of build more and more speed to try to get to other planets to explore quicker. But I think really what they're looking at is using these a larger scale of these solar sails that can be deployed and extended and retracted, that can be used to boost orbits of satellites. So instead of them,
Oh.
a lot of the time, what what the lifeblood of a satellite is, what causes a satellite to no longer be viable, is it runs out of propellant, and can no longer maintain its orbit. So at that point, it either needs to be deorbited or sent to a graveyard orbit, because it's no longer safe, because it's not, once it runs out of fuel, it's just going to degrade and can hit other things and cause problems. So if we can deploy this stuff, or get this to work, we could have much longer life on satellites. And then we're worried about battery life and worrying about solar cell life, as opposed to worrying about propellant, which is right now the linchpin, kind of the limiting factor. So pretty
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Um, so yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Steph, for adding that. That's a
Yeah.
cool one. And then I think,
Also in the news.
yeah, so I also I wanted to mention Rocket Lab
Oh,
is
yeah.
one of my favorite space companies, because they've been just kind of the little engine that could, very much like SpaceX. Um, and they are very small. They're considered small launcher, because the Electron is pretty small. Um, and they did go public earlier this year, which is pretty cool. I think full. I think what is the? I think there's some sort of rule that we're supposed to say that full disclosure. Stara and I are both shareholders in Rocket Lab. I think we have
Oh,
to. I think we
and
have
we're
to.
not and we're not financial consultants or professionals.
Yeah, and we are not providing any kind of financial advice.
That's the point. Yeah.
Please speak to your financial advisor if you have questions about investing in something like Rocket Lab. Um, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of Rocket Lab. I love their CEO to death. He's hilarious, and super open to people, and super friendly, and does lots and lots of interviews, and is very open to talking to people on Twitter. His name's Peter Beck, and he looks like a crazy New Zealander, because he is a crazy New Zealander. Uh, but yeah, Rocket Lab, super cool company. But yeah, so speaking of the financial world,
Yeah, speaking of financials, SpaceX hit a $1 billion valuation.
$100 billion valuation.
What did I say? One?
You said one.
Oh, 100. $100. $100 billion valuation. Uh yeah, they so and that makes them now the second. Let me look at my article here real quick. I think it's this they're the second largest or second most valuable private company uh in the world right now.
Yes, that's correct.
They just outpaced. I think they just outpaced Stripe, if I'm not mistaken. Where did I see that? I'm doing good. I'm doing real good with this section of the. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so they're behind a Chinese company called ByteDance, BYTE. And they've just jumped past the financial processing company or whatever, Stripe. Yeah, they did a share sale, I guess, recently, and raised a bunch of money, and yeah, SpaceX is worth more than $100 billion now, which is an insane amount of money.
It really is. I mean, you can't really wrap your mind around that much money. Like, it's not, at least to me, it's not possible to wrap my mind around how much money that actually is. Um, but I mean, to me, it's a testament to just how successful SpaceX is. Um, and for
Yeah,
them to raise that amount of money that quickly, says just how confident other people are with their own money. And it's obviously it's not individuals in most cases, it's large financial institutions. Um, but they are seeing that as a very safe investment, which I would absolutely agree. If SpaceX were to go IPO tomorrow, I would put a lot of money into buying their stock, because I think they are going nowhere but up, and that's just absolutely true. Um, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna add briefly. So, their last valuation in February was $74 billion. So within the span of six, I mean a little more than 6 months, I guess, but um 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
They've got another $20 billion basically, which is crazy.
Yeah, they
Uh,
basically, what, like a 25 or 125% increase or something like that.
yeah.
Something cray cray.
Uh, yeah, yeah. It's insane.
Well, I mean, if you pay attention at all to what's going on down in Boca Chica, with the Starship, and Super Heavy, and just how fast that's coming along. Um, which, if you're interested in that kind of thing, I'll give another plug, I guess. NASA spaceflight.com follows what's going on down in Boca Chica very, very closely. They actually have I know a reporter for sure, Julie Bergeron, who lives in Boca Chica. She actually lives in the village and can see the SpaceX facility like at her back porch. Um, and talk about somebody that found something and cornered it and made it a job. She was just an amateur photographer and now is like kind of the point source for what's going on in Boca Chica all the time, which is pretty fantastic. And when they're doing Starship testing and launches, it's like everybody in the community, which is pretty tight knit, to be honest. Uh,
Mm.
they may be competitors, but not really. NASA spaceflight will set up right next to every astronaut on the same porch, like, and, and they're doing their shots together, and you can sometimes hear them on the other stream as they're hooping and hollering when something happens, which is pretty cool, I think. Um,
But,
which I think now, actually, that was the past. This kind of changed. I know now that Everyday Astronaut has his own studio down in Boca Chica, um,
oh yeah.
which is smart for those guys, and I think NASA spaceflight does now too. So yeah, just that all that development down there, and because it's really right next to a village and right there in the middle of nowhere, like, and there's a public road right next to it, and anybody can drive up and see what's going on. So very transparent. SpaceX is very transparent with what's going on. They may not always tell us what's happening, but you can just kind of go watch. Um, so I do know there's some cool stuff coming up with Super Heavy and with Starship. I think Elon kind of alluded to the fact that we should see an orbital launch attempt early next year. Which, if you consider,
Starship?
for Starship, yeah,
Very cool.
I mean, we were talking about it being a flying water tower like a year and a half
Great.
ago, 2 years ago, maybe. Grains of, I'd have to look when Starhopper went up. I mean, it was not that long ago. Feel like it was 2019 or early 2020 that Starline or that the Starhopper did its thing, and now we're looking at an orbital launch attempt maybe next year. That's insane. Just the pace of development is freaking impressive. Um, But kind of speaking of SpaceX, that brings us into our main story. Our main portion of stories tonight are kind of all around Crew Dragon and the commercial crew program with NASA. To give a little background of the commercial crew program, it started off with a bunch of different companies trying to compete for two contract spots to provide, I believe it was 6 flights each to the ISS. And bring back our capability to fly crewed missions from American soil. They were kind of the last few finalists were Boeing with the Starliner, SpaceX, obviously with Crew Dragon, which was modeled after the Dragon capsule because they'd already been doing cargo for a long time. And Sierra Nevada was in there as well with the Dream Chaser. And so was, I believe, there was something with Northrop Grumman, but I don't think they made it very far. and that was back when they were in orbital ATK. But they got gobbled up by Northrop Grumman. Anyway, I digress. I got off there. Anyway, at the end of the day, it ended up being the contracts were awarded. I think it was something like 80% of the money went to Boeing for the Starliner. And the other 20, 25, 30%, something like that, went to SpaceX for the Crew Dragon. And this is, years ago. It was not a cost plus. It was a, direct purchase. There's no balloon payments. There's no increases. There's no, unless there's something really strange, which we'll get to. SpaceX kind of ran away with it. The Crew Dragon didn't have a whole lot of issues. We did have one of the abort tests that blew up the capsule, which was a little bit of a setback, I will say. But they quickly realized what the issue was. It wasn't a design problem. It wasn't a software issue. It wasn't, anything like that. It was a readiness issue. It was getting it ready for flight problem. Without getting too far into it, basically when they cleaned out one of the propellant tubes, they used this special lacquer that they didn't realize could harden, and so it hardened and closed off one of the exhaust lines, and so it caused the one of the Super Dracos that's used for the abort system caused it to explode. So it's a very easy fix. It was very easy to identify and make it not happen again. So it didn't really set him back in time. Starliner, however, has had nothing but problems. And it's been really sad to watch, to be honest, because I used to be a humongous fan of Boeing. But it kind of all happened at the same time. You had the 737 MAX situation happening where we were crashing airplanes. And then we have the Starliner continuing to get delayed due to different design problems, different sourcing problems, and software issues. So in parallel, you have these two companies that are doing their thing. SpaceX, other than that one ground test, which was a SpaceX test, not a NASA test. That was a SpaceX test. It did set them back. I think they said in total it set them back about 6 months, which is not a huge deal, especially considering they blew up a capsule.
Yeah.
They flew DM1, which was unmanned. It had absolutely no issues. Came back and had, there were like 2 or 3 items that they needed to look at, like something with the heat shield that they wanted to just tweak and make better. I think there was a little communication issue they had to solve. But I mean, for the first uncrewed flight test of a brand new vehicle to have so few issues, it was very obvious that NASA was very confident in SpaceX very quickly after DM1. On the flip side, the orbital flight test, the unmanned orbital flight test, or OFT-1 for Starliner, had all kinds of problems. They lost communication with the capsule when it was supposed to be in its orbital boost phase. When it's supposed to boost itself into the ISS orbit, they lost contact with it and were unable to give it the proper command, and the autonomous computer system failed. So the Starliner ended up in a too low of an orbit to meet to rendezvous with the ISS. So its main mission it was not able to do. And then on its descent, on its return or reentry, it had multiple issues that could have caused the crew, or could have caused capsule destruction, that were caught by the ground and fixed in time. But it was all software problems. And at that point, NASA was not comfortable with them putting astronauts on the second flight, obviously, until these issues were fixed. It took them a long time to fix those issues. And then we had COVID roll along, which caused more problems and caused issues. And then you got to look, the docking sequence, the docking schedule on the ISS is very intricate and it's very crowded. And it's if one thing goes off, it pushes everybody to the right, on the schedule. And there have been some issues in the last year or so that have caused Starliner's OFT slot to continue to get moved, and now they're saying it will not fly this year at all, and it may not fly until the third or fourth quarter of 2022. And there's been additional design, engineering, and software issues that have come up. So right now, Starliner's kind of looking like a lemon.
Yeah. And they
Which
got 80%,
they
80-ish.
they got a lot more of the money, yeah. SpaceX has, by the way, SpaceX has said now in hindsight they really wish that they had bid more for Crew Dragon. I know Gwen Shotwell has flat out, she was joking, laughing about it on an interview, and basically was like, we didn't really know what we didn't know, but we could have made a hell of a lot more money if we'd known then what we know now, that it did cost us more than we thought it was going to. And we never imagined that we would end up being the sole source, which is what they are now.
Right. Yeah.
So like I said, on the flip side, SpaceX had DM1 went off without a hitch. DM2 went up with Bob Bacon and Doug Hurley, the first manned mission, or sorry, crewed mission of an American capsule in years and years since Apollo, and just blew the doors off. It's perfect. It was almost a flawless mission. Again, they had like 2 or 3 tiny issues they wanted to solve. And then we fast forward, we've had Crew 1 and Crew 2 both go up flawlessly. We've had a private commercial launch happen with Inspiration 4. We've had, I don't know how many, I'd have to look, how many Crew Dragons have been successful without any problems. At this point, and I knock on wood,
you don't mean Crew Dragon, you mean
Cargo Dragon, sorry. Yeah. How many Cargo Dragons have gone up? It's been, I think of the new variant, like 4 or 5 now. So because of all that, we put all that into context. NASA has moved the astronauts that were assigned to the first operational mission for Boeing, which I think is called, it's Boeing's Crew 1. They've been removed from that manifest and have been added to Crew 5 of SpaceX. And SpaceX, that Crew 5 slot, they've slotted SpaceX into the slot that was supposed to be for Boeing. So when we talk about those schedules marching to the right, effectively they have awarded another Crew Dragon mission to SpaceX, because the ultimate goal is that we have to keep them flying every 6 months up to the station to swap crew. And if they can't do it, they can't do it. So we're looking at 3, 4, and 5 are coming up. 3 is going to be at the end of this month on the 30th. On the eve of Halloween, which should be pretty cool. I think it's going to be at a ridiculous time. I think it's like 12.
Hallows Eve.
I think it's like 12:45 or something like that. It's not horrible, but I mean, I think I'm going to be at a Halloween party.
At night?
Yeah, at night. I think I'm going to be at a Halloween party, so we'll have to see. Maybe it might be the morning of the Halloween party, in which case I might stream it. I mean, it is a crewed mission. I do try to stream those if they're in any kind of realm of timeline that I can.
That would be cool.
So we'll see. So yeah, we got Crew 3, 4, and 5. Excuse me, I'm choking on my water.
Anyways, 3, 4, and 5 are coming.
Yeah, I'm not dying. It's fine. Oh Lord, times it's a live stream. Anyway, 3, 4, and 5 are coming, and up until late last week, all the sources you looked for, which capsule is it going to be? Because right now we have 2. We have Resilience, and we have Endeavor. Resilience just flew Inspiration 4. There is some turnaround time between, they do need, I think it's like 3 or 4 months to refurbish them between reuse, because there's a lot that has to be done. And if you've seen what a Crew Dragon looks like once it comes home, it needs some work. It needs to be cleaned up and repainted. The heat shield needs to be replaced. There's not a whole lot of parts inside that need to be replaced, just things that need to be inspected. Really the big replacement parts, it has to be cleaned up, and the heat shield has to be replaced. And obviously tanks have to be refilled and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, right.
So Resilience just came home. Endeavor's on the station. So we knew that we were going to get a new Dragon.
Yeah.
We knew there's been lots of grumbles and rumors about how many are there 3 in production, or there 4, or there 5, how many are being built. Um, but they did confirm during a crew briefing that Crew 3 and Crew 4 will both fly on brand new Crew Dragons. The first of which is serial number Capsule 210 or C210. Um, and the second one, we don't know for Crew 4, we don't know what its number is yet. I would probably assume it's C211, although that may be taken by a cargo dragon. It just depends. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. We're getting 2. So that'll bring the fleet up to 4 operational Crew Dragons. And they have given us a name, which the first crew that gets to fly on a Crew Dragon gets to name it. Of course, Bob and Doug named the first one Endeavor. And then Crew 1 named their Crew Dragon Resilience because of, they launched in the middle of the COVID crisis. So that was kind of a throw to the resilience of humanity.
Did you say Endeavor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Or Resilient. No, you said Resilience. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Endeavor was Bob and Doug's, and then Resilience was Crew 1's.
I was thinking Endeavor and I heard not Endeavor and I got very confused, even though you'd already said Endeavor. So sorry.
It's all good. uh, so yeah, we've got Endeavor and Resilience. Crew 3 had their kind of their first press conference last week, and they announced that they are naming Charlie 210 Endurance. So Endurance will be joining Endeavor and Resilience to be the third operational Crew Dragon. And then the fourth one will be named by Crew 4. And then, of course, we don't know which capsule Crew 5 is going to get. The manifest for these is getting a little bit nuts. I saw a tweet today that said that, not counting any of the suborbital stuff, we could see 8 commercial launches with people next year.
Jeez.
And I believe they counted OFT2 in there somewhere. But just looking at what we have scheduled just for the Crew Dragon that haven't gone up yet, we've got Crew 3 here in October. We have Axiom Mission 1 that is supposed to fly in February. We've got SpaceX Crew 4 scheduled for April. SpaceX Crew 5 is in October. And then Axiom Mission 2 is going to happen sometime in the second half of 2022. And then we have Crew 6, Axiom 3, Axiom 4, a Space Adventures mission, and Crew 7. So not all those are this year or next year, but that's just the Crew Dragons that are going to be flying. And that's what's on the manifest now.
That's crazy.
There's going to be more added, I guarantee you. We're going to either see more Axioms, more Space Adventures, or somebody else is going to come out of the woodwork like Inspiration 4 did. So I don't think we're going to stop at 4 Crew Dragons. And Gwen Shotwell kind of alluded to the fact that we were going to get probably that they were building 3 more, and we know of 2 for sure. So there might be 1 more that pops up, which would bring us to 5 operational Crew Dragons, which that's pretty impressive.
I kind of hope some of them get named something like funnier. Like, they're all named very like inspirational things right now, which is cool, but I kind of want one to just be like kind of off the wall. Really get
Well,
people
I mean,
talking.
so if we look at the history of naming things, looking in the most nearest history, we have, the space shuttles: Challenger, Columbia, Discovery, Atlantis, Endeavor.
Atlantis. That one's off the wall.
A little bit. If you want to look at weird, we just have to go back to Apollo. And they started naming them. We had Charlie Brown and Snoopy were 2 of them. The capsule was named Charlie Brown, and the lamb was named Snoopy. After that, they kind of put a kibosh a little bit on it and didn't really let them name them crazy things anymore. Uh, of course, for Apollo 11, it was Columbia and Eagle. Um, so I think for your crazy name thing, I think that kind of got ruined by the Apollo program.
I mean,
Um,
I don't want it to be too crazy. I don't want like Rocket McRocket face or anything like that. But
yeah,
just something that's a little goofy, like Charlie Brown and Snoopy. I don't feel like that's bad. Like that's funny. That's
yeah.
cute. You know,
I'm sure we could get some good ones. Also, I just noticed we have a very special guest that has
we
joined
do.
us
We do have
joined
a
us
very special
here.
guest.
This is Kokomo the space kitty. She attempts to destroy my space things. That is her contribution to my space stream, is all this wonderful stuff you see behind me. These models have to be way up high because of this little girl, and everything behind me has to be in glass because of her. And most of the things behind me on the table I have to pick up and put back at least once a week.
Of
But
course.
she's a very good kitty cat, and she wants my attention. But a Tuesday night stream night.
I
Um,
have one question about Crew 5, since that's like an additional mission that was supposed to be a Starliner thing.
uh-huh.
And you were kind of talking about the, awarding of the monies. It does Is SpaceX getting additional monies for that, or
So at this
is
point,
that
it's
working out
still
for
so at this point it's still one of their contracted missions.
them?
Okay,
Okay.
so there's no money to be awarded.
Mm,
If if it were to officially get to the point that they were like 100% taking flights away from Boeing and giving them to SpaceX, if SpaceX goes beyond the six that are contracted, there is a fixed price that's already been negotiated that SpaceX will be
gotcha.
paid for the use, and it's the same amount that they paid for the first six. Although I think I read a little bit or saw somewhere that it would trigger a renegotiation, in which case I
Mm,
expect SpaceX to probably ask for a lot more money,
yeah.
um, which I don't blame them. As long as they're not taking advantage, which they wouldn't, I don't think they would do. Um, but when you're the sole source,
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, in the same vein, I'd say I think NASA would again, as long as it's not I don't want to say exorbitant, because I feel like launches are very expensive to begin with. But you know what I mean. As long as they're not like taking advantage of the situation uh too much. It's What other choice do you have? So NASA would be like, well, let's
yeah,
do
and
it.
and honestly, a lot of it's already been paid for.
Yeah,
So at this point, the infrastructure has been paid for. They
true.
paid. NASA. It was subsidized. They were given money through the whole process to build the first Crew Dragons, to build the prototypes, to design the stuff. A lot of the Falcon 9 design was done during commercial cargo, and that was all. There was a lot of NASA money given for their development. So I think that part, it could go both ways with the renegotiation, because NASA doesn't need to pay for that anymore. They just are paying for the consumables at that point, for the expense, for the use of a Falcon 9, for for expending a second stage, which is just how that works, and
Yeah,
then the wear and tear on a Crew Dragon, plus the training and everything else that goes into what SpaceX does for a launch.
sure. Yeah,
Um, and considering one of the big goals of SpaceX is to bring the cost of spaceflight down, I don't think that they may not ask for more. They may ask for what a comfortable profit
yeah.
on it, but they don't need NASA to help them develop anything new. It's all
That's true.
done. All the infrastructure's there. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to see that stuff. I always love Crew Dragon launches. I really hope we get to see Starliner fly. It is a beautiful spacecraft. It is very pretty. Um, but um,
It's not a spacecraft yet.
but yeah, until it flies people. Well, I mean, it flew, so it's a spacecraft, but it's not a crewed spacecraft yet. It's not
Uh,
human rated yet.
that's fair, I guess.
Um, I hope it gets to fly, and I wish Boeing nothing but the best. I hope they can get everything sorted out. I don't want us to have a sole source anymore. That's dangerous.
No, yeah.
Um, I mean, I have all the faith in the world with SpaceX, and I do believe that they have developed and are deploying the safest spacecraft that's ever been developed by man. Um, but space is hard,
Mm,
and shit happens that you can't foresee, um, and that you can't, you can't design around every eventuality. Um, there's always a there's not it's not a zero number. You can't ever have a 0% chance of failure. You can get very close. I think it's 0.0001%, I think, is the rating. But that still means that there's a chance. Um, and if we were to lose a Dragon, God forbid, it would set us back and put us right back to where we were of not having the capability to fly. Um, and I don't want that.
yeah.
So I would really like Starliner to get up flying. And I mean, as much as I love doing Crew Dragon streams, I like a little variety. I like to do some Starliner streams that I can learn some more. I can learn some new stuff about a new spacecraft. I can, you know, um, which actually we did learn some cool stuff from Inspiration 4. Apparently that there was a problem with the toilet, like is what we're now kind of understanding.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it had some issues. Well,
The
because it
waste
wasn't. It
disposal
was.
system.
Yeah, wasn't really designed for that. It was designed for short trips to and from the space station. It wasn't designed really for free flight.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a feeling, and there's been some jokes about it, that they probably there's SpaceX engineers, burning the late night hours trying to redesign a replacement for these free flights that works a little better. I guess the Inspiration for crew did have a little bit of trouble, I think, with floating poo. It would be my guess. Um, yeah,
Yikes.
nobody wants the floating turds in your spacecraft. It was actually a pretty big problem in Apollo. uh, but yeah, yeah, well, it wasn't ever really an issue on the space station or on shuttle. But yeah, capsules don't have as much space, so I'm sure they'll get it sorted out.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to end this on poop in space, but I think we might be
That's
ending
just
this
how it
on.
be sometimes.
Sometimes we just end up on poop in space. Stare, did you have anything else to add to the conversation or anything else? Any questions or?
Well, yeah, I very quickly was looking up Starliner, and it looks like Starliner is just the capsule itself. So how is it getting up there?
It gets up there on a ULA Atlas 5.
Okay, got you.
So unlike SpaceX, which is all its own thing, its own rocket, its own second
They
stage,
have
its own
a full
everything.
platform.
They
Yeah,
have everything from the ground to the station and back, including the ships and everything else.
right.
Um, Boeing is they have contracted or partnered with ULA as their launch provider.
Okay.
Um, but Boeing does have a recovery ship. I cannot remember the name of it. Um, but they, of
Oh,
course,
okay.
the Alice 5 isn't reusable, so all that infrastructure isn't needed.
Mm,
Um, and Starliner again lands just kind of like Crew Dragon does. So, but I mean, if SpaceX wasn't in the picture, if I was Boeing and I was looking at I need to use a rocket to put people on to get to space, and SpaceX wasn't an option because in this case they're my competitor. Although I'm sure they would have loved to sell the Falcon 9 to them. I'm sure they would have loved
I'm
that.
sure.
That would have
I'm
been
sure.
would have been friggin' hilarious. But NASA would have never gone for that. They want it stovepipe. They want it separate. So if there's a problem with the Falcon, it doesn't affect Starliner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I had to choose a launch company that is reputable and very rarely has failures, and a rocket that very rarely has failures, I'd choose the Atlas 5. It has been kind of the workforce of the U.S. space program for a very, very, very long time. The Atlas dates back to Gemini and Mercury,
Good
like
Lord.
the original Atlas. Obviously, we're on the Atlas 5, so we're on the fifth variant of it.
The
But
fifth
um,
revision.
but yeah, I'd love to see that fly too. I know that ULA's got a beautiful launch site there um, at Cape Canaveral, at Kennedy Space Center. They got a beautiful launch site there for Starliner. They've used it for a few other things.
Mhm.
You know, it's still active ULA launch site. I pretty sure Lucy's going to be launching from that launch pad
Okay.
on an Atlas V. So they still use it. It's not just sitting there. It's not like some poor guy's going to like wipe off the dust and get the cobwebs out of it. Like it's still in use.
Get the
But
can there, Jim.
it was, you know, sort of has been refurbished and built to have a crew access arm and all those kind of things, so it can take the Starliner. Um, so yeah, and then great. Thank you for the question. We didn't have to end with poop in space. So
Well, until
um,
you brought it back up.
I know. It's a vicious cycle. All right. So this has been State of Space. Again, I am Rab. I'm the friendly neighborhood space nerd, and I was joined by one of my very, very best friends, Stairbender, who is our friendly neighborhood keyboard and tech nerd. And thank you for joining me and for your wonderful commentary as usual.
No,
Um,
thank you.
so we will be back next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central live on twitch.tv/rabtdk. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see us live, and you can ask questions in chat. If you have them, Mr. Stair will catch them and read them to me if we do get questions. And if you're watching on Twitch, we're not quite done. We still got a little bit of video game time to do. So we're going to go back to Pulsar and try to figure out this very perplexing mission. But for those of you here, I hope you take care of yourselves. I hope you take care of everybody around you. And we'll see you next time for more State of Space.